Hey guys, Eric here with 4Up Gaming. And today I want to talk about part 1, getting started with Kings of War. So, if you're new to the game and you don't quite know where to go from here, you know that 2nd edition is about ready to end, 3rd edition is about ready to start, and maybe you're wondering, is this the right time to jump into this game or not? I'll tell you that it is, first of all, and I'm going to show you the cheapest and easiest ways to do that coming up. If you're new to Kings of War, welcome. And the first thing I will say, go to manticgames.com. They have a whole section on there about free rules for all of their game systems. You're going to want to go there and check out the free rules. Now, right now, it's still 2nd edition that's loaded up there. It's September 21st, 2019, and that's a month roughly before the drop of 3rd edition. So right now, it will be the 2nd edition rules that'll be up there that'll be free. Now, it's not the full rule book that's loaded, but it's a good portion of it. It's going to be enough for new players to be able to get to try the game system. And you're thinking, cool, well, I got the free rules. What about models, right? Before you go out there and spend a whole bunch of money on models and spend a whole bunch of money painting them up and basing them and everything else, hold on a second, okay? Take those free rules, grab a buddy, and sit down and do this first. Okay, this right here is a cardboard cutout. It's supposed to be I believe it's large cav size. And what we did when we were starting out, and we still do this to this day when we're play testing a new list or a new army, we'll go and we'll get cardboard cutouts and we will cut these to the size that is specified in the rules as far as what is needed for the size of the movement tray for the different units. So for example, this is an a cavalry movement tray. This is a troop size, and so in the rule book it'll tell you the dimensions for this unit, and that is the size of the movement tray. Well, instead of buying the models, buying the movement tray, why not just cut out a piece of cardboard that is the exact same size as this? Because that's really all that you need, at least to get started. So that's what I would do. Use the cardboard or even paper. We'll even use paper sometimes. It's not going to look pretty, pushing paper and pushing cardboard around, but it's going to give you guys the best idea as far as the best, real world play without spending any money, or at least very little money. Now, the next thing, and I already kind of mentioned it, but you're going to have somebody to play the game with. All right. When you guys are just starting out, it's always good to have at least one more person to play this game with you. You have to have 2 people to play the game. If you're struggling to find somebody that wants to get into Kings of War, there's Facebook groups out there, Kings of War Fanatics, Countercharge, Kings of War Worldwide. There's a whole bunch of Kings of War forums out there as well, and even just going down to your local hobby shop and just seeing up on the bulletin boards, posting up there going, hey, new player to Kings of War, anybody else want to play it? Sometimes they'll have even set up as far as nights that they're going to play the game. Maybe Thursday night at 8 o'clock they'll play Kings of War or whatever. So that's the big thing, is reaching out to those people in your area that are playing Kings of War, and if there aren't, then you may want to reach out a little bit further and just see if there are people around you that are playing Kings of War. But once you get somebody to play with and you've done your cardboard cutouts and you're ready to go, start playtesting. Biggest thing is playtest, playtest, playtest. You're going to find that this game is really well balanced. That's a big departure from some of the other game systems out there. Some of them I'm not going to mention. But yeah, it's much more balanced than other game systems. And a lot of people are going to like that. At least unless you want to have an unbalanced game. I don't really know who out there wants that, but that's definitely one nice thing about Kings of War. So, you've got a person to play with, you've got your paper cutouts. What else are you going to need? Well, you're going to need a tape measure. All right, nothing too fancy here. This is actually a tape measure from Harbor Freight. I don't know if you guys have Harbor Freight out near you, but these are usually a couple bucks. You can actually get a coupon. Harbor Freight sometimes will have them online, or they'll do them through the mail, and you can get these as freebies a lot of the time. Sometimes you don't even have to buy anything to get these tape measures. So this tape measure, I think it actually was free for me because I was there picking up something else and I bought this. And of course, I know what you guys are thinking, it's a free tape measure. How long is that going to last? This has actually lasted me several years, and this was even my backup tape measure. I know, backup tape measure sounds stupid, right? But this was my backup tape measure when I went to Adepticon this year. And I almost had to use it because the tape measure that I did buy, which was an Army Painter tape measure, which was like 16 bucks, ended up breaking on me after a couple of games. So I think I got through Adepticon. I can't quite remember, but I had this one just in case. This has been a good tape measure. There's no frills to it. It doesn't look pretty unless you're an orc player and you like green. But you know what? It works and it'll get the job done. You know, this is my one that I use right now. It's a little smaller, but this is from IKEA. This is 99 cents. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't need to buy specialty ones from Games Workshop. I know Mantic right now has their own tape measure for, oh gosh, I want to say it's $2.99 or something like that. That's not a bad deal for a tape measure. But it's just something that you don't need to spend a whole lot of money on. So what else are you going to need? You've got your cardboard cutouts, you got your free rules, you got your tape measure. You're also going to need some 6-sided dice. All right. I would recommend having at least about 30 of these dice, but you're going to need 6-sided dice for the game. Some people like to use casino dice. Most of us don't care. The only problem with casino dice is that they're usually pretty big, and you're only going to have about 10 of them normally. So, you know, if you end up getting into combat, let's say, you know, you end up flanking a unit with a horde of spearmen here, well, guess what? That's going to be 60 attacks. So, if you only have 10 dice, you can imagine how long that's going to take to resolve combat. So having a good amount of dice, I would suggest at least 30. You can get them at Chessex. Chessex.com is, I think, where I got most of my dice. And you can get a good price, depending on what kind of dice that you want. You can get a good price through Chessex. So the next thing that needs to be talked about, a table. You got to have a place to play. When you're first starting out and all you're doing is pushing around cardboard and paper, you don't need to have the 6-foot by 4-foot gaming table. As much as I would suggest it later on, but for right now, you're learning, you don't need it. You just got to have a good surface to be able to play on. This table right here is, I think, a 3.5 foot by, I don't know, 6 maybe. No, it's not even 6 feet. Maybe it's 5.5 feet. I have no idea. But you know what? For the purposes of Kings of War and just starting out, it's probably big enough. Meanwhile, though, you can always check with your local game stores. Most game stores have 6-foot by 4-foot tables. That's kind of the standard for a lot of these tabletop war games. So you can always check at some of your local game shops, see if they have tables for you guys to play at. So next thing I want to talk about is look, don't spend money on this hobby unless you're ready. All right. One of the things that people spend a lot of money on are obviously the models. The next thing is terrain. Now this terrain is beautiful. It's well painted. It's awesome, and it looks great on the tabletop. That piece is actually from UrbanMats.com. The problem with that is it's very expensive. So when you're just starting out, do you need to have stuff that looks like that? No, you don't. And I'll be the first one to admit, does stuff like this end up on the tabletop? It does. It really does. When you're first starting out, you can use anything as terrain. This is makes a beautiful piece of impassable terrain, just as long as if it does have your favorite beverage in it and you're going to be drinking it throughout the night, you might not want to use it because obviously this is going to get moved, and you want to have your terrain in the same place throughout the whole game. So what I would suggest is, if you're going to, maybe you want to go cheap on terrain, especially when you're starting, a great place to start is Hobby Lobby. This right here is a bird feeder. This was a couple bucks at Hobby Lobby, just painted up, and you know what, it'll do pretty well. It's not going to win any awards, but it's going to look a lot better on the tabletop than, you know, a cup or a can of spray paint. But it's going to get the job done. It's going to look all right. This right here, some Hobby Lobby bricks. These are styrofoam bricks, and I can't remember the name of the company that makes these, but they're just bricks that I glued together, and I put them on a foam board with a little bit of grass on top. Again, it's not going to win any awards, but you know what? When you're starting out playing this game, cheap is the way to go, and it's going to get the job done. You need to have terrain in this game. It presents different tactical advantages and disadvantages, and it's a huge component of the game to help with the overall gameplay. So you're going to need terrain. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it, though, I'll tell you right now. This whole game, you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. That's one of the beautiful things about Kings of War. You've played a couple games, you decide you want to get into the game system. What's next? I'll tell you right now, guys, buy the rulebook. I know you can play using the free rules online, and I have buddies that will do that for as long as they humanly possibly can, but eventually you need to buy the rule book. Now this is the second edition rule book, so depending on what edition you want to be playing in, you're probably not going to want to buy the second edition rule book, but because I don't have the third edition rule book, it hasn't been released yet. That's why I'm holding this one up. Get the rule book, all right? Whether it's second edition, third edition, whatever you're going to play, buy the rule book, okay? That'll have all the armies in there. That way you can go through all the armies and try them out. I do not remember online with the free rules how many different armies they include. But at least with that rule book and with the supplements, you'll be able to play any of the armies. So you've gotten to the point now. You have play tested the game. You've used your beautiful, wonderful cardboard cutouts, but now you want to start putting some actual models on here. The beautiful thing about Kings of War is that there's no rules in there that say that you have to use Mantic models. You can use whatever models you want as long as the unit footprint, which is the base size included in the rules, right? As long as the footprint is the same or close to the same size as the unit that you're using it for, that you're representing it as, you can use any model that you want. Okay, the biggest thing is that you want to have the unit footprint be the same size. Now, let's say you have certain models in mind that you want to use for a unit, but let's say the models are bigger. Typically with Kings of War, you can always go bigger. You just can't go smaller. So for a horde tray, the horde tray will always be this size. It will never be smaller than this horde tray. However, if you want to go a little bit bigger because you want to use certain models, most people will allow that, because typically in Kings of War, if a unit's bigger, it's going to give up more disadvantages than advantages. But typically you want to check with your if you're going to a tournament or an event, you want to check with them and make sure that they're okay with you having a bigger unit size rather than what you're supposed to have. So with Kings of War, you can use any models that you want. For example, I have some GW Seaguard here. They make wonderful elf spearmen. They make wonderful models in my elf army. Mantic is starting to improve their range of models that they're coming out with. I have some Fireforge Games models as well. These guys work great. These guys are beautiful models. But you know what? What's really cool about it is I can use these models as well as Mantic. I can use GW models. I can use whatever models I want, because that's one of the cool things about Kings of War. They don't care. All right. Now, throw Mantic games a bone. I mean, eventually, you do want to spend some money with Mantic. Again, I don't work for Mantic, so I'm not telling you guys to buy everything Mantic. But let's be honest here. If we don't buy any of their stuff, we're not going to be supporting them, right? We're not going to be able to support the game system, and eventually it's probably going to go away. So Mantic products are awesome. They are getting better by the year. The quality of the products that are coming out with are getting better and better over time. But this is something that I wanted to talk about. You don't need to spend as much money as you think. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're picking up a horde of elves. I'm an elf player, that's why I got a lot of elves here, okay? I know everybody that already plays Kings of War, yes, elves are kind of jerkish. But anyway, with any size that you're going to play, whether it be troops, regiments, hordes, whatever you're going to play, there is a preferred model count and a minimum model count. The minimum model count is the lowest number of models that you can have on the movement tray and still be eligible to use that unit. Now, what does that mean? What that means is this. This unit right here is a troop of horses. It's a troop of cav. Okay, it's a troop of Elven Stormwind cav to be exact. This troop is 5 units, or I'm sorry, 5 guys. All right, that's what it's made up of, is 5 models, and that is accurately represented on here. But with minimum model count, you don't necessarily have to have all 5. You can have 4. I mean, actually, that's preferred model count. You might be able to get down to 3. Now, on here, it may not seem like a big deal, 4 instead of 5, whatever. But let's say you're going to do multiple units and you don't want to spend the money on all the models, or let's say you have just enough models to do multiple units but not the full amount. You can definitely do this. And this is called preferred model count or minimum model count, as opposed to exact model count here. So Kings of War allows you to, you don't have to use the exact amount of models as what's listed in the army. So a horde is usually 40 models. There's not 40 models on here. I think there's 27, because I always go with preferred model count, and preferred model count is usually around 70%. I think it's about 67 to 70% of the models. So I think I always round up to 70% just to make sure that I'm okay when I go to tournaments and stuff like that. But preferred model count is, for me at least, I use 70%. In the rules established by Kings of War, I want to say it's like 66 or 67%. But anyway, so if you look on here, you'll see there's not 40 elves on here. But I like to do like a diorama almost. Okay, and so you can pose these guys differently. You can add different types of stuff onto your bases. You can really make them look dynamic. And that's one of the cool things about Kings of War. You don't have to stack them like this like you did in some other rank and flanks games like Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Yeah. Where you had to stack all 40 guys, right? You had to stack them all in there, and then when you're moving around, if somebody sneezes and you drop them all and they go everywhere, now you're spending 20 minutes picking everything up. In Kings of War, we don't have to do that. So you can really make these look dynamic and really cool, and it really opens up creativity and your imagination to do all different types of things. But what it also does, most importantly, is it helps you save money. Right here is 27 elves instead of 40. You know, that saves me 13 models. I can take those 13 models and I can use them to make a regiment or a couple of troops or whatever. Or, you know, add them into another group of 14 models, and boom, now I've got 2 hordes. So that's the beautiful thing about Kings of War, especially with the preferred model count and minimum model count when it comes to playing the hobby, or when it comes to playing the game. You don't have to have 40 models to play a horde, or 20 models to play a regiment, or 10 models to play a troop. You don't have to do that. You can have different, you can have them posed differently and stuff like that, as long as you're adhering to the minimum model count or preferred model count. So that's another cool thing about Kings of War that kind of sets them apart. Also, the multi-basing, I think, is really cool. With multi-basing, this right here is a troop. I've multi-based these guys into a troop. So if I want to use this unit as a troop, I most definitely can. I have a troop of elves, they're doing this, they're moving around, doing whatever. But let's say I change my army list and I don't want to use a troop. No big deal. All I have to do, let's say I use another troop together, I push them together, and guess what? Now I have, if they'll line up, which I know they will, except for the one dude with the spear, there we go. Now I have a regiment. Or I can have 2 regiments. I have another 2 group of guys over here. So multi-basing, as long as you multi-base them smallest unit size to biggest, you can multi-base and use these multiple times. This unit does not have to be used as a troop unit. I can use it in a regiment, or I can perform together into a horde. This is the beautiful thing about, another beautiful thing about Kings of War. That it took me a little while to learn, and unfortunately I had to spend some money in the process. But like right here, I have this unit based, multi-based as a horde. Now there's nothing wrong with doing this. The only problem though is I can only ever use this unit now as a horde. These models cannot be used for anything else other than this horde, which, if you don't mind spending money on everything, this is okay. But if you're watching this video, it's probably in regards to keeping it cheaper when you're getting into the game. So that's not necessarily the best way to go. The best way to go when multi-basing is right here. Multi-base everything in the smallest troop size, or the smallest unit size that they can go first. And then from there, you can always add more to it if you need to. And what's beautiful about this is I can have these guys in a horde formation, or I can have them in 2 regiments, or I can have them in 4 troops. These guys are not stuck to one specific size. So if I end up changing my army list, you know, a couple years down the road, or whatever, it's not going to change necessarily. I'm not going to have to rip my models off of the bases and try and rebase them. Multi-basing is an awesome thing, and I love it. It saves a lot of money, but it also really opens everything up to creativity. It helps you be able to put your own personal spin on these armies, and they don't all look the exact same, just different paint jobs. This game system is awesome, and it's only going to keep growing. Kings of War, the community, you guys can see it on Facebook when you guys go to your local tournaments if you get a chance. It's a great game system, and it's a great community. These people are very fun to play against, play with. A lot of the time, these people, especially veterans in the game system, they're willing to help out people that are new. If you have questions, ask them. That's the beautiful thing about it. If you're at a game store and you see people playing Kings of War, most of the time, and I can't speak for everybody, most of the time, most people are willing to kind of show you how the game is played. Most of the community is very friendly, and they just want to grow the game and grow the community around the game. So, which I don't know about a lot of you guys. I don't know what game systems you're coming from, obviously, but in other game systems it was not like that. Kings of War community is extremely friendly. This community is awesome. I've met a lot of great people that play this game. And all that we really want is just for the game to keep expanding, and for the community to keep expanding, and to keep bringing in as many players that want to have fun and play a good, competitive, fair, balanced game. So if you guys have any questions, and I know that this is just a getting started segment, and this is part 1 of getting started, right? But if you guys have questions, you can always leave a question in the comments below. You can email me directly. You can email any of us at 4UP Gaming at 4UPGamingGroup@gmail.com, or get online to the Facebook pages. We have a Facebook page, 4UP Gaming Facebook page. You can also check out Kings of War Fanatics on Facebook, as well as Kings of War, Countercharge Kings of War, or Kings of War Worldwide. Now, any of these websites or Facebook pages or forums or whatever you go to, they're all going to be very helpful. If you have any questions about how to get started, definitely ask them. That's one of the things I love about Kings of War is the community. People want to make this the best game system out there, and they just want to have fun and just have a really good game, and they want new people to feel welcome and to be encouraged to get into the game and to try new and different things, and to try different units and try different armies and really get into the game. So hopefully that answers most of your guys' questions as far as getting into the game system, as far as unit size, well, as far as preferred model count, minimum model count, and even, like I said, just getting started in the game system in the cheapest ways possible. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.